this is my first ever book tag. This is so exciting. We pick one book per continent. And I'm going to start with Australia. Now, at first I wanted to do something a little bit different and pick New Zealand instead. So I didn't really know if that counted as part of the Australian continent. Wikipedia schooled me, it told me that it doesn't count, but it's part of Oceania, I think. So, yeah, we're not going to talk about the New Zealand book. We're going to talk about the Australian book. And I do not love this Australian book less. I don't want anyone to think that just because it was my second choice. It was only my second choice because the author is more well known than the New Zealand author. Melina Marchetta. I've been thinking a lot about why when I was introduced to Melina Marchetta I was like, oh my god, I love this. And I think it has to do with this other author that I read. I found her books when I was in junior high, really liked them, kept reading them all throughout high school, but then at one point this other author, she became married to her comfort zone, and so every book that she wrote after a certain point kind of was the same. Like the only difference was the main character's backstory. And I even wrote a Venn diagram of what really irritated me. I have not told you what book I picked. Looking for Ollibrandi by Melina Marchetta. It's about this girl named Josephine. She's 17 years old. She lives with her mother. She was a teen parent. She had Josephine when she was 17 years old. And Josephine's father is not in her life until the book starts. But I really enjoyed the book. Loved the relationships in the book. Not just Josephine's romantic relationship with this guy, but also with, mom and daughter relationship. And I also liked Grandma. I love that Grandma had her own little story arc going on in the book. I think that more books should have, a story arc for Grandma. Why not? Why not? Next, we're going north. We're going to Asia. I picked Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto, which I read back in February, and I liked it. I thought it was cute. It was only 100 pages long. Not everyone likes short books because it's like, you start caring about these people and then it's over. I like short books. I find big books kind of intimidating sometimes. I'm more likely to finish the short books. It's less of a commitment, I guess. So basically, if there's someone in your life who, they might be scared away by those 500-page books, then maybe this is the book for them. And then we're going to Africa. I was originally going to talk about Half of a Yellow Sun because the whole book is set in Africa. But instead I picked The Thing Around Your Neck, which is a collection of short stories. And I don't know, maybe half of them are set in Africa and the other half is set in America, but with Nigerian immigrants. So, yeah, I picked the short story collection because I liked that more than Half of a Yellow Sun. And it was just dynamite. Sometimes I started out skeptical about the stories, but I ended up loving them. Like, for example, I think that the last story was called The Headstrong Historian. And, I wasn't really sure how I would feel about it, but I ended up loving it as soon as we get to the point where we find out why it's called that title. I talked about the collection in another video that I made. I don't know if I said anything different in that video, but a link it anyway. Next up is north to Europe. We're going to England now, and it's going to be set in the 1940s. Again, this is an author who I really liked. She really stepped out of her comfort zone with this book. Before, she was writing Victorian novels, her set in the first person. Now we have this book that's set in the 1940s. It is The Night Watch by Sarah Waters. In The Night Watch, you follow 4 characters. One of them is Helen. Helen has a girlfriend named Julia, and things are not going well with them. Helen is like, she's convinced that Julia is cheating on her. She even got into like a really bad argument with her, but at the same time, she doesn't know if she's really right. So after she's completely horrible to Julia, she'll then like act all really sorry and ask for her forgiveness, and there's just no trust in the relationship. There is a TV movie version of this, and I thought it was good at getting like, you know, this really thick book into a 90-minute movie. And the biggest problem with it was with Julia and Helen's relationship, because Helen is not that bad in the TV movie, but Julia reacts in the same way that she does in the book. In the book, Julia's reactions were justified. In the movie, they were not. One of the other characters that we see is Viv, and we know how Viv and Helen are connected because they work together. Viv, she's having an affair with a married man. They've been in a relationship for years. Helen has a brother named Duncan. He is another character that we're following. Duncan was recently released from prison. Another character that we follow is Kay. We don't really know how Kay is at all related to any of the other characters. She seems to run in completely different circles. Yeah, she's just, you know, this woman who's pretty sad about something. One day, Viv sees Kay and she recognizes her. So, you know, you're kind of wondering how they might know each other, wondering a bunch of other things about these characters. And all those questions are not answered until the book goes backwards. We go west to North America, and the book that I am recommending is The House on Mango Street. The House on Mango Street is about this young girl. Her name is Esperanza. She lives in the house on Mango Street, which is kind of, she and her family dream of the day when they won't be living in a house like the house on Mango Street. So it's really about the American dream, you know. For South America, I picked another book that's, you know, quite short. It is The Ways of Going Home by Alejandro Zambra. He is a Chilean author. The book is divided in 4 parts. We actually follow 2 characters. I did not know that when we first started reading the book because it's all in first person, and I don't really recall if I got the main character's name. The first part is about this boy and his relationship with this girl named Claudia. The second part is about this guy. He's a novelist, and at first I thought that this was just the boy grown up, but it wasn't until this guy was contemplating how to write his novel, if he wants his main character and Claudia to meet up again, that I realized that part 1 and part 3, they're written by the guy that we're following in part 2 and part 4. If you get the book, it says on the inside flap that that's how the book is set up. That's not how I roll. I don't really read the synopsis before I read a book. The last book that we have is Antarctica, and this Antarctica book is one that I have not read. Because I have not read it, I do not know what it's about. Where'd You Go, Bernadette? Not read it, but I intend to read it. I will read it by the time I do the book voyage video. And the book voyage video is a lot like this tag that I'm doing now, but I'll be able to talk about multiple books per continent, and I'll tell you about the New Zealand book, and I'll have read this Antarctica book.